Alright, so in this recording, I'm going to be showing my settings on how I stream with the Ryzen 3 2200G CPU, APU I mean, and with no graphics card. So disclaimer first, I will not be held responsible for any damage that might be dealt to your system. Just like everything most things in life, take this with a little grain of salt and do your research in some stuff that I'm gonna say here as well before you actually do it. So right now I have my Ryzen 3 2200G overclocked, and it is overclocked at 3750 megahertz for the CPU clock, and then for the Radeon Vega 8 graphics it is clocked at 1500 megahertz. And I've also overclocked my RAM to 24,000 megahertz. So we're gonna go one by one. See my memory here. I got 16 gigabytes of memory. This is a 4 gigabyte times 4, so it is 4 sticks of 4 gigabytes installed. Two of them are CL15 and then two are CL16, but don't think those would actually matter that much in this video. Just know that I have 16 gigabyte of RAM and I've overclocked them to speed up 2400 megahertz. How you can do that? You can search online on how to overclock this stuff. Another thing is I'm going to show the Ryzen Master to show the clock speeds right now. So right now it's at running at this clock speed, but it's actually overclocked. So this is the one that I'm using. So 3750 megahertz, CPU voltage of 1.4, and then the APU clocks is at 1500 megahertz at 1.225 voltage. Maximum memory VDDIO and 1.2 SoC voltage. My memory is not controlled from this Ryzen Master. I have it set up from the BIOS. So yeah, and then if your if your system is not overclocked, then it's fine. You can still try these settings for Streamlabs OBS and see the result. So you might want to go back to this part of the video to check the result if it's similar to the one that I'm going to show you right now, because this should be the outcome. If you want to see the video itself and come back to it later instead of watching this video over and over again, so actually see the video itself, you can copy this link right here on the web browser. Just post this video and copy that and go to that link on your web browser. So it still should look similar to this, and right now it's at 720p. It's at auto, but it's set at 720p. It's at 720p.
Which quest are you up for?
Should look similar to this. Let's skip to the intense part, that intense movement parts, and as you can see, it is pretty smooth. This is the stream, by the way. While you're playing the game, it's gonna be really smooth with the settings that I'm going to show you while you are playing, but sometimes with the wrong settings your streaming will be a lot different from what you're actually experiencing while playing, so it might turn out laggy even though while you're playing it seems to be smooth. So it should be similar to this, the outcome after you've set your OBS settings. Okay. So now I'm going to show you the Streamlabs OBS settings that I use. As you can see right now I'm recording with this, and we're gonna go settings. On the video tab, I have my monitor at native resolution, which is 1360 by 768. You should also use your monitor's native resolution, and then most likely it will be higher, excuse me, most likely it will be higher than 720p. If not, then just stay on 720p. If it is lower than 720p, then stay at that same resolution. So you're gonna want to set the base canvas resolution to your native resolution, and then if you can downscale it to 720, downscale to 720. If it's already lower than 720, then just use the same resolution as your native resolution for the output. Downscale filter, use Langzos, FPS, common, frame rate, FPS value 60. Now we're gonna go to output. For streaming, since we don't have a video card, we're only gonna be using software X264. So that will be using the CPU power to do the encoding of your video and sending it uh, to the internet. Rate control CBR. Uncheck enforce streaming service encoder settings. Uncheck rescale output. You shouldn't rescale the output here. You should rescale it at the video tab. Bitrate, per Facebook standards, they say that the maximum bitrate should be 4000. I did try setting it to 6000 bitrate, but I get better results at 4000 bitrate. Don't get me wrong, I know this is dependent on the speed of your internet as well, and it did work for 6000 bitrate, but the result weren't better than 4000 bitrate. It was actually worse. I was getting lags, frame lags with 6000 bitrate, while on 4000 bitrate it worked just like it showed you. And then keyframe interval, you can set this to 1 or 2. I'm not sure uh, which is better actually, but I feel like 1 is better since it's going to be sending keyframes much more frequently every seconds rather than every 2 seconds. So I feel like that's gonna be a lot smoother instead, like more consistent. Every 1 second is gonna send a keyframe, so I think it's gonna be more consistent. And it's also the recommended according to BMI, I think, BMI standards and stuff. CPU preset, CPU usage preset, set this to very fast. If Okay, so we're gonna be playing with the bitrate in the CPU preset, CPU usage preset, but if your internet can support it, use 4000 bitrate, and then adjust the CPU usage preset depending on whether it's lagging or not. If it is lagging, then lower the CPU usage preset. Like the lowest is ultra fast, so the faster you go, you set this, the lower that setting is. So lesser CPU, like you said, lesser stress on your CPU. But if you want better clarity on your stream, like if you want the images to be much more clearer, you want this to be set as low as possible as you can without causing the stream or your game to be laggy. Because if you set this too low while you are gaming and streaming, most likely what's gonna happen is while you're playing the game, you will experience lagging within the game. So if you experience lagging within the game with this preset, set the preset faster so that reduces the load on your CPU while you're playing until eventually your in-game gameplay no longer lags. For me, very fast is just enough so to make sure that my in-game experience is smooth, no lags. at the same time giving better clarity on the images from my stream. Profile, just select main. I went on too long on CPU usage preset, but I think that's okay since this is going to be a pretty short video anyway. 10 minutes already, huh? Profile, just set it to main because most viewers of the video usually require main. Some viewers cannot view your video if you set it to other settings. Main is the the common viewable type of video and stuff. Tune, just leave it to none. X264 options, just leave it to none. And then for audio, you'll want to set this at either 96 or 128, I think, or either of those two. I set mine to 96 because I believe the lower the bitrate, the lower internet connection it's gonna need, the slower internet connection it's gonna need. So 96 for me is fine. And then on the audio tab, this is fine. The default is 44.1 kilohertz, but you can go as high as 44.8, I think. But let's just leave it at 44.1 kilohertz. And that's pretty much about it. Try these settings and see if it will work. If you trying this on stock setup without overclocking and it ends up lagging, you can try playing around with the CPU preset or overclocking your PC. But then you're gonna want to check some information online and do some research about overclocking. And yes, there are videos out there, especially on YouTube, that will show you how to overclock your CPU, your Ryzen 3 2200G. So yeah, I've seen it go up to even higher overclocks than what I have right now, but for me I think this is the most stable so far. I've tried overclocking my APU to 1600 MHz, but I had a bit of visual error with Genshin Impact with that, so I lowered it to 1500, and I also lowered the CPU to 3750 instead of 3800. Although I've seen 3800 on CPU and 1600 on APU, but I lowered mine just to be safe and to be more stable. Then again, it's not exactly 100% safe, but usually if you can run your computer at overclock for about 2 hours or 3 hours, maybe 20 or 30 minutes is enough actually. If you can run your computer at full load, 100% load with bench testing softwares for that long amount of time, then usually it is fine. It's going to be fine in the long run. Of course, it's going to lower the lifespan of your parts, but then again, by that time that it becomes unusable, you will most likely be already be changing parts and upgrading to other parts anyway. Well, that's just it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Hope you get good results with your streaming. And yes, streaming with Ryzen 3 2200G without a video card is actually doable. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.